Caleb like grabbed my shoulder, like tears started coming to my eyes, because I'm like, what in the heck? Like, I've never experienced, never heard of anything like this happening. And now I've had a vision 3.5 weeks ago that's now come true. Who are these people? Why did that happen? And then, dude, my heart was just completely invested after that. I fell in love with the people. I feel like they fell in love with me too. And then from there, it started, how can I help? Because I didn't know how. The problem was way too big. I was way too small. I had no training in community development. The only promise I felt like I could make them was after Andy Bo died. I knew that they needed land.
This is the 7-year-old boy who died of
1.5-year-old boy.
And he died of waterborne illness.
Waterborne illness.
And you met him and saw it happen. And
met him, saw it happen, and dug the grave. Had blisters on my hands. It was $1 for the pills that would have cured him. I mean, it would have been several days or weeks of pills, but it was equivalent to $1 US. The one-time shot that would have cured him would have been $3.50. The casket and shovel that that we used to bury him in was like something like $38. And so just wrecked me that a little boy's life was stopped before it ever began, just because he didn't have something that I have, that so many people do have. And that the statistic is that 5,000 children, just like Andy Bo, die every day. So that's like equivalent to 100 school buses falling off a cliff every day. 100 filled school buses falling off a cliff. And for me, it's like, I know that in our culture, if one school bus gets in an accident, it's gonna make local news, or probably national news. And so, but for these people, the forgotten people, or for Mama Mariamo, who I know, who is one of the just best, most sweetest people in all the world, you know, she was a modern day slave before river blindness took her eyesight. And then with the children's statistic, 5 of her 7 children have died just because of dirty water. But now, like, you know, knowing I was just wrecked, didn't know how I was gonna start anything up, but now, like for Mama Mariamo at least, her village that we were able to work with and do land, water, and food initiatives, you know, she's the closest living person to the water well in their village. And it's 20 footsteps outside of her front door. So for her and her 2 surviving kiddos, you know, that was just one of the most fulfilling moments of my life, seeing them get clean water, knowing that at least her and her 2 children now, they're not gonna suffer anymore from that kind of sickness. I'm telling you, man, like the water well celebrations, how we're going back to celebrate the 35th, my wife and I had an idea of 300 acres of land and 2 water wells.
But when you first started
That's when we
this.
first kind of started.
Okay.
After my second trip of
Right.
like, the second trip I went to live with, listen to, learn from, so that I could love them, or learn how to love them. That was my 4 goals. Live with them so that I could listen to them. And so around the campfire, they called that Campfire University. That's where the Pygmies took me to school. And then I could sit there and listen and learn. And I learned that that's the easiest way to give someone a voice. You know, someone that's voiceless, whether it's someone in our own community, someone that's homeless, or if it's a homeless people or a voiceless people group. Like the easiest and quickest and first way we should give them a voice is just by giving them our ear, sitting down, spending some time with them, listening to them. I think a lot of people from the West, they go to Africa with a solution already in mind, or they just think they can throw money at the problem, or they have some cookie cutter solution. And it's like, no, it's a different country, a different culture, a different people group. It's a different context. And people are individuals, and we're all unique. And so our answers to our problems are going to be unique as well. And so
you told me, I think one of your big aha moments was when you realized that opportunity was the answer, not charity.
Right. And so I think that's what I've learned through this whole process, is that opportunity is greater than charity. And I'm not speaking bad about charities. I don't want to point fingers at them, but I think a lot of the ways that we do it, we can do better. I think that we could reserve charity for famine, for natural disasters, for some kind of relief effort, or for people who have disabilities, who can't help themselves. But just because someone lives on the continent of Africa and they have dark skin, like, it doesn't mean that they need charity. What they probably need is an opportunity. Like charity in their poverty, like that's just going to keep them in their poverty. But an opportunity out of poverty, like that can create something that they see as, oh my gosh, I can get myself, my kids, my wife out of poverty. And then that can inspire them to do that for someone else. And so that's what we've done with selecting 18 locals that graduated from a university there with degrees in community development. Like they already had a heart for their people. Like they already wanted to be the change in their own country. And so all we had to do was give them a job and put the tools in their hands on how to drill water wells, give them the knowledge of how to do it correctly so that we can verify and know, and how to test it afterwards to make sure the water truly is clean and safe for the people to drink. You know, so tools in their hands, knowledge in their heads, and then after that, you just send them out to be world changers because they're already inspired and like, oh my gosh, this is a real answer. It's a real solution. I can do this. And it's a job. So now now we're creating jobs, but they're saving lives. And so for me, it's awesome. The proof in the pudding for me was like, I didn't want this thing to be dependent on me, because if it was, then I ultimately failed. Like if Justin Wren dies right now, like then it has to be able to still go on, or at least the impact. And I'm not saying necessarily fight for the forgotten, but the people that I know have to know that they can still run this thing. And so I was on the ground for a full year at one time. I've been going back and forth the last 5 years, but for that full year, we were doing all water wells. So we did 13 water wells and just cranked them out, actually 12. Then my wife and I sat back and we watched the 13th water well be drilled.
And you're on the ground for these things, drilling them. And you're sometimes taking days to get into these places, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard work. And your
hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Hardest thing you've ever done, including going into a cage.
Yes, a lot tougher.
And you said your first 5 wells didn't succeed, right?
First eight wells, the geology, the geological obstacles that we were given in this one region was so tough that we didn't have the appropriate tools to bust through the sandstone and the granite that we were coming across. And so
this is probably a silly question,
people just lost
but
hope.
Like you see pictures of like Congo in Africa, and it seems very green and very lush.
Yeah.
And you would think there's lots of water there.
Yeah, no, it's a rainforest.
Right. And then again, you're like, water's the answer. And it seems to me that, I guess maybe we're so used to water that water couldn't just be a solution itself. But you're saying it is, right?
Yeah, water changes everything. Water is life for the people there. Without it, they're dying. Their children are dying. I mean, Mabuti pygmies, the statistic I've heard is 1 in 2 or 6 out of 10 Mabuti pygmy children under the age of 5 die. It's one of the highest child mortality rates in all the world. And so you bring in fresh water to a place and it changes the culture. It allows the girls to go from walking an hour to collect dirty water to bring back to now, like, hey, there's water in their village. Maybe they can go to school now. You know, they don't, like, it's, you know, the women that are spending such a long time going on those walks, I think it's something like 40 million hours a day, or maybe even more, are spent by women going to fetch dirty water. 40 million hours during each and every day, because they're going to collect. And so being able to give water to somebody now, it's right there in their front yard or in their community. They don't have to go so far to fetch it. So it's hard to explain unless you like lived it or been there to know how much it changes things, but it truly does. And so, yeah, with us, it was first land, then it was water, then it was food. And so we've acquired 2,470 acres of land for the pygmies. By the end of the year, we're hoping it's going to be 3,000 officially, but it's legally that they own. They'll pass it down from generation to generation. Now we've established 10 brand new villages on that land. And those people are transitioning out of a life that they've always lived of slavery.
Can you tell me a bit about that life? Like, I don't know much about the pygmy people.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to LondonRealAcademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media, log in and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at LondonRealAcademy.com. So click on the link below. You'll be directed there, and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.